a book that you had been reading and also listening to some podcasts written by the Dr. Gilbert Welch. And the title of his book is pretty interesting because it's Overdiagnosed, right? Making people sick in the pursuit of health. You also, I remember you telling me that it's different from various keto and low carb, all those in fashion terms that we use, that we discussed in our past podcast. So I was wondering if you can develop a little bit more on that.
Yeah, so separate from the low carb, low fat debates and protein things we've talked about in nutrition and public health discussion, Dr. Welch looks at technology, advancing medical diagnostic technology. We think of new technology as good, and certainly it's good for like more efficient operations or new ways to help people that have had strokes and things like that, for people that are actually sick or injured. But what he's discussing is sort of higher resolution diagnostic technology that, when they scan someone's lung, they find abnormalities. They find lesions, they find things that they couldn't see with the earlier scans. And they think of those things as abnormal since they're not what people normally have, and they tend to want to treat them or deal with them in some way. And he suggests that a lot of the scanning and diagnostics that reveals abnormalities and leads to treatment, a lot of that treatment is not effective. That is, what's discovered is not really an illness. It's just a variation. And it's misinterpreted as an illness. And so there's a lot of medications that happen that wouldn't have happened. Used to be people would go to the doctor when they were sick or they were injured, broke a bone. Now there's these annual checkups. You go every year and they do these high resolution scanning and they often find things. But it may be better not to go to the doctor until you're sick. So it's interesting background. He gives various examples from this.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a bit confused. Are you saying that, or Dr. Welch, I should say, he's saying that doctors in general should diagnose less and scan less? Aren't many diagnostic discoveries somehow potentially life-threatening?
Gilbert Welch in the book Overdiagnosed goes through a sort of a history of how we learned the importance of measuring blood pressure. Again, generally people didn't go to the doctor unless they had symptoms. But there were cases of people who didn't have symptoms but had high blood pressure. Doctors have measured high blood pressure for 100 years, but it's not clear what they really knew about it. For example, President Roosevelt, in November 1944, his blood pressure was way high. He wasn't treated, but 6 months later, he died. And had they known to treat his blood pressure to lower it, maybe he would have lived longer. So Dr. Welch cites a Veterans Administration study in the 1960s where they tried to do a solid randomized control trial to see the effect of using drugs to lower blood pressure. They took 140 people, 140 people with high blood pressure. 70 of them got a medication that lowered their blood pressure. The other 70 got a sugar pill that did nothing, a placebo. And they ran this study for 3 months, I think. The length they ran it, I've forgotten. Powerful results, though. Of the 70 who had no treatment, 4 died, 4 had strokes, 4 had heart failure, 7 had eye hemorrhages, 3 kidney failure, a total of 27 incidents in those 70 people. Of the people who took the treatment, the drug to lower their blood pressure, the intervention, there were only 2 events, 1 stroke, 1 treatment complication. So it was clearly valuable for people who have high blood pressure to have it treated with a medication to lower blood pressure. Now, the other part is that a lot of our sense of disease and the doctor's sense is cultural, which seems weird. But the foods we eat are culturally very different from place to place, and our traditions with food. Similarly with medicine, for various reasons, Lynn Payer, in her book, Medicine and Culture, she had the experience of living in France and then moving back to the US and noticed that all sorts of things that American doctors propose surgery for, in France, they don't. And so there's a culture of lots more surgery in the US for various reasons. And I told the story of a friend who had uterine fibroids, and the doctors here just wanted to do surgery to take everything out and solve the problem that way. But the doctor trained in France did embolization, a minimally invasive surgery where you just cut off the blood supply to the fibroids and they shrink. But throughout America, that's a minimum procedure. Most doctors do surgery for uterine fibroids when they're too big and so forth, or they do another procedure that's said to cause cancer as it spreads stuff around. There's a lot in that. But back to Lynn Payer, she says in France, when people get sick, they tend to think of it as a liver problem. And they think that, gosh, I'm feeling bad. Must be something wrong with my liver. They go to the doctor and the doctor says, hey, there's something wrong with your liver. Here's a pill. And so I asked that to a friend of mine at one of the summer university programs in France. I think just because I thought it was a crazy talk. And he says, oh, no, that's true. He says, I was in the United Kingdom and I had a liver panic. So I went to a doctor and the doctor looked at me like I was crazy because doctors in England don't expect to see liver panics, but doctors in France do. In Germany, the story is hearts. People feel bad. They say it's their heart. They go to the doctor says it's their heart. They give them a pill or whatever. Lynn Payer thinks that's because of the influence of the poets, Goethe and Schiller, who knows. In England, the tradition is to just suffer, stiff upper lip, endure. And in America, the tradition is surgery. There's a problem, we'll get in there and cut that out. So there's hugely more surgery in the US for conditions that aren't in other countries. Or ADHD, attention deficit disorder. In America, a huge number of kids have that and prescribed pills. Nobody in France, no kids in France have ADHD. If the kids can't pay attention in school, they blame the school, not the kid. So these are different cultural traditions, country by country, and America's healthcare system and our health is damaged by overdiagnosing and by prescribing too much of stuff when maybe other approaches would be better for people to feel better.
That's so true. And I can only speak, if I were to speak for Romania, it would be we don't do either or, because there, the health, unfortunately, we have great doctors, but the healthcare system, it's not very well organized. And you go to a doctor only if you feel sick, and then they tend quite not to go so much into deep. It's more like, as you mentioned, friends, or they try to first maybe go on a natural path rather than prescribe medicine at the beginning or a surgery. And just because, to be honest, I think it's also our way of dealing with things. In general, for Romanians, we don't kind of pay attention so much to our health, and we should. So we're all on the other extreme. We say that everything is good, we're fine with a bit of wine and cheese, life it's good again, but it's not. So there we have another extreme, which I don't think it's good, that we don't go to the doctor. We wait up until the last moment to go to the doctor, when maybe sometimes it's pretty late. So that's not something that I'm very proud of. But when it comes to Spain, I think it's more related and more compared to friends, as you described, and in general. Like I noticed here in Canada, I think it's pretty similar as it's United States as well. You just go to the doctor and you say you have a problem, and then they just like prescribe suddenly medicine. And it's just like, for me, it's a bit mind-blowing, because can we just try another alternative? And then if you go with that question, then maybe they can think of. But if not, the first one is just like, as you said, overdiagnosed, prescription, not so much in Spain. And as you mentioned, it's something cultural. It's something like food as well, right? We have different ways of approaching. We think that, as you mentioned, kids don't have any issue. It's the problem with the school. We're treating things more naturally, as we treat more naturally food in general, or at least that's my perspective as an immigrant in both European countries and both North American countries. And I can't talk about United States because I haven't been there yet, but I can talk about Canada. So yes, I totally agree that that's the over panic here in North America, overreacting. And I also see in parenting as well, right? You brought the kids to sometimes don't touch these because it can be too dirty, but then you want to develop those microbes so that the defense system of the kid works properly, right? If you clean every single time, you can't. The kid can't just live in a bubble, right? So
Yeah, those are we want to live healthy. And what does that require? So being outside, healthy microbes, we want to have a measure of ourselves. So measuring our microbiome or our blood pressure or our blood glucose levels, vitamin D levels, we've talked about that. And I'd be curious about whether the development of health coaches and nutrition coaches, now that you have internet, if that's expanded in Romania and Spain the way it has in the US, because one of the things that direct primary care doctors say is they need 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, to talk to people to get a sense of they may have this problem, but then it turns out there's huge stress that might be a cause that they don't find out about in a just 15-minute meeting. And so it takes time. One of the advantages of a health coach is you pay for their time and they're drawing on their expertise. They're not medical experts, but they can send you to somebody who might be once they get a better sense of your potential problems.
Right. I guess I would like to just circle back with my last question and asking why to diagnose can reveal so many abnormalities in people. Like, shouldn't they all be treated, or how do you tell which are medical problems and which just differences? Like,
yeah, well, ideally you do that through medical research, where you have data saying, okay, 50,000 people were diagnosed with this. Half of them were treated, half of them weren't, and there was no difference. This is the case that Dr. Welch draws from South Korea. In South Korea, they developed an ultrasound technology to check for thyroid cancer, and they could see thyroid cancer with much higher resolution than they could before. And, there turned out to be an epidemic of thyroid cancer in South Korea that was treated by removing thyroids, medication, a whole bunch of things. But 5 or 10 years later, they discover it made no difference. That is, even though people had thyroid cancer, it wasn't an aggressive thyroid cancer that was growing and causing general cancer. It was just something that was there. But they didn't know that when they diagnosed it. A similar story with prostate cancer in the US. Most men with autopsies, they find they have prostate cancer. It tends to grow very, very slowly. Some people, it's aggressive and you want to treat those. But again, if people come in without a complaint, this was the example Dr. Welch used in George W. Bush. He's healthy, he's doing sports, he's active, he goes to the doctor, and the doctor finds that he's got a diminished blood flow in one of his heart valve or heart something. They put in a stent, they do all this surgery, and that's that. But he never complained. So was he about to have a heart attack, or was he just fine? I just had my carotid artery scanned with ultrasound, and they found it 30% blocked. And I thought, oh my God, that's terrible. I'm 30% blocked. Well, I'm older. And she said, yeah, they don't even pay attention to this unless it's over 50%. Plus yours seems to be smooth with calcium deposits over it. So it looked like something caused by maybe, poor diet earlier, but it's not a problem now. But if the doctor were to have said, look, we found 30% damage, we need to put a balloon in there and try and open things up, you don't know. So I guess the general argument is lots more surgery takes place because they find things they thought were problems, but only later research reveals what is dangerous and what isn't. What level of heart disease or what level of, other issues is really something that you need to intervene with surgery or other medical treatments.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not good. One extreme, as we talked about the US system, like overreacting, over diagnosing, but I don't think it's good, the Romanian system either, that you go when it's too late.
Yeah.
And just to conclude, Greg, for our listener, if you were to just conclude what we just discussed, what do you think is the most valuable phrase that our listeners should grasp from this podcast?
So I guess the main thing I would say is we have lots of tools to measure. I've got a Fitbit and Halo that'll measure sleep quality and body fat. I have scales that do some of that. And I've got a blood pressure machine. And these are $20. You can buy these. They're cheap. So I check my blood pressure and it's fine. I look online and it says, this is okay, but this isn't okay. So if I were to find high blood pressure, let's say it starts next week and I find it's unusually elevated and stays elevated, I should go to a doctor because something's happened. Even though I don't feel symptoms, increased blood pressure is a problem and should be treated. And of course, the low carb people say it's caused by insulin resistance generally and so forth. So you want to reduce your blood pressure through diet if you can. Doctors will prescribe pills that, maybe is one way to do it. So measure your blood pressure, get a blood test. They're cheap to do. In the US, maybe they're free in Canada, but you find your fasting blood glucose, hemoglobin A1C, your cholesterol ratio, which there's some question about what's valuable, your vitamin D levels. So, because what you're looking for is the data that says people with ultra high blood pressure, they have strokes, they have heart attacks. So if you have that, find out and do something about it. Similar with other things, find the home-based diagnostic tools that will allow you to see that. The Fitbit, for example, just got approval from the FDA to measure your heart arrhythmia. The Fitbit had this technology for years, but the FDA wouldn't let them use it. Turns out it's hugely accurate, and they can tell when people are going to have a stroke or heart attack ahead of time and send them a notice. See your doctor comes up on your Fitbit advice thing. But that's, get access to the inexpensive self-measurement tools that will just let you know when something serious is coming. And when doctors recommend surgery for other stuff, like people with obesity, they say, well, we can put a gastric bypass or this or that on your stomach. Look that stuff up. Those things don't go well overall. They're still proposed by surgery crazed, doctors, but dietary changes are much better to deal with obesity, according to a huge, over 100 studies that show in the recent 10 years.
Right. Thank you so much, Greg. This was really interesting. And for our listener, we're going to share this on our YouTube channel and on the Podbean, and we make sure to put the links also on our Instagram, which is Research Nutrition, and we'll make sure to have that as well, so that you all grasp all this message that Greg kindly shared with us.